The alien princess stood at the edge of the grand observation deck, her tall, graceful form silhouetted against the vast expanse of space. Stars shimmered like distant diamonds, and the glow over her home planet reflected faintly in her large, luminescent eyes. She was the heir to a powerful empire, a civilization older and more advanced than humans could even imagine, and her authority was unquestioned. Yet there was a spark of curiosity in her gaze, a hunger to test the limits of control. That day, the human had been brought before her at her request, escorted by 2 armored guards who barely concealed their respect, or perhaps their fear. He was unlike any human she had ever seen, taller than most, with a steady posture and calm, unwavering eyes. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone used to surviving impossible odds. "Human," she said, her voice smooth yet commanding. "Kneel." It was a simple command, but the alien princess expected hesitation. Few in her empire would dare defy her, let alone question her authority. Yet she noticed something in the human's expression, an almost imperceptible light of eagerness in his eyes. He lowered himself slowly, deliberately, onto one knee, not out of fear, but with an intensity that suggested satisfaction. The princess arched an elegant eyebrow. She had not anticipated this. "Do you understand the meaning of this action?" she asked, her tone cold but curious. "I do," he replied steadily, "and I choose to comply." The princess tilted her head, intrigued. Most would resist. Most would fight even a meaningless command. Yet you? Her gaze lingered on him, studying him as one might examine a rare specimen. "Why do you kneel?" The human allowed a faint smile. "Because it is what I desire. Because submission can sometimes be the greatest form of strength." The alien princess frowned slightly. She had studied humans extensively, yet none had ever spoken in such a way. The human species was known for rebellion, for fighting against control, for struggling to assert themselves. Yet here was one who met her authority not with fear, but with choice. "Very well," she said at last, gesturing for him to rise. "You may stand, but do not mistake my curiosity for leniency. This is a test. Fail, and the consequences will be severe." The human stood, his expression calm, his posture relaxed. "I understand, but I do not fear failure. Not in your presence." The princess found herself intrigued by this human, more than she had expected. He was confident, composed, and unlike anyone else she had encountered, unafraid of her power. For the first time, she considered the possibility that humans might not be as weak as her empire had believed. Over the next several days, the human was subjected to trials designed to test obedience, intelligence, and adaptability. The princess watched from her elevated chambers as he navigated her elaborate challenges, each more complex than the last. Other species had failed these tests before, unable to comprehend the rules or match the cunning of her empire. Yet the human excelled. He anticipated traps, solved puzzles with ingenuity, and remained calm even in the face of danger. The observation deck became a place of private lessons, where the princess and the human would engage in exercises of strategy and thought. She began to notice subtle changes in herself, her respect for him growing, her curiosity deepening into something she had not expected, fascination. One day, during a particularly challenging simulation, the princess issued another command. "Human, kneel." This time, the human lowered himself without hesitation, the calm smile returning to his face. He looked up at her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "You enjoy this," she said, her voice softer than usual. "I do," he admitted. "I enjoy serving someone worthy of my loyalty, someone strong enough to command it." The princess paused, struck by the truth of his words. She had never encountered a human who understood the power of choice and submission, who saw kneeling not as weakness, but as a deliberate act of strength. For the first time, she wondered if perhaps humans had something her empire had underestimated: resilience, determination, and a profound capacity for loyalty. Days turned into weeks, and the exercises continued. The princess found herself seeking the human's counsel in matters of diplomacy and strategy, valuing his perspective in ways she had not expected. The guards began to notice a change as well. The human's influence grew, subtle but undeniable. Even in her presence, they deferred, sensing that his calm authority was a force to be reckoned with. The princess invited the human to dine in her private quarters, a rare honor. The room was filled with the soft glow of bioluminescent crystals, casting a gentle light over polished metal surfaces. The human observed the alien architecture with curiosity, but he did not speak unnecessarily. His quiet presence seemed to draw her attention, making her acutely aware of her own reactions. "Do you truly understand our customs?" she asked, pouring a crystalline beverage into a delicate vessel. "I do enough to respect them," he replied. "And enough to learn from them?" The princess studied him, her mind racing. She realized that his loyalty was not blind. It was a choice, informed by observation and understanding. And yet, it was unwavering. It was a strength she had not anticipated. "Most humans would resist everything I offer," she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Yet you embrace it." "I embrace the opportunity to serve someone worthy," he said simply. "It is a rare thing to encounter true authority and choose to follow it." For the first time, the princess considered a different perspective, that perhaps humans were not inherently weak or inferior, that perhaps they possessed qualities her empire had overlooked: courage, adaptability, and a capacity for loyalty and devotion that could rival any advanced species. As the weeks passed, the bond between them deepened. The princess found herself issuing commands not as tests, but as challenges, and the human met each one with eagerness and skill. She began to look forward to his presence, to the steady confidence he brought into her life. One evening, as the twin moons of her planet rose in the sky, she found herself giving a command with a different tone. "Human, kneel." He lowered himself immediately, as always, but this time their eyes met in a silent understanding. There was no fear, no hesitation, only mutual respect and unspoken acknowledgement of the bond forming between them. "You understand the meaning of your actions," she said softly, her voice carrying a note of warmth. "I do," he replied. "And I choose them as I always have." The princess allowed herself a small smile, something she rarely did in public. "You are unlike any human I have encountered," she said. "Perhaps unlike any being in my empire. And yet I am still learning," he said. "Still observing, still adapting. That is what humans do. They endure, they adapt, and they choose their path with intent." The princess considered his words. She had spent centuries mastering the art of command, of ruling. Yet this human had taught her a new lesson, that true strength was not only in power, but in the willingness to choose, to trust, and to submit when it was done with understanding and purpose. Over the months, their interactions evolved from formal exercises to genuine partnership. The princess began to rely on him, not only for strategy and counsel, but for companionship. His perspective, his courage, and his unwavering loyalty became an integral part of her life. One day, during a routine inspection of the Empire's outer colonies, an emergency arose. Rebel factions had launched an attack on a remote outpost, and the princess was faced with the challenge of orchestrating a defense across multiple sectors. She turned to the human, as she had come to do instinctively. "Lead the response," she commanded, her tone sharp with urgency. He nodded, issuing precise orders to the fleet and ground forces, coordinating with the alien commanders as if he had been trained in their ways for decades. The rebellion was quelled swiftly, the human strategies flawless, and the princess watched with admiration. After the conflict, she approached him privately. "You have proven yourself beyond question," she said, "not only in obedience, but in leadership, judgment, and loyalty." The human bowed his head slightly. "I serve where I am needed," he said simply. "And I choose to serve you." The princess felt a rare warmth spread through her, a mixture of pride and something deeper she could not name. "You are human," she said, "yet you embody qualities that even my empire struggles to find among our own." "And yet I am still learning," he replied, his gaze steady and unwavering, still choosing each day to follow where strength and purpose led. The princess considered this, her mind tracing the journey that had brought them here. What had begun as a simple test of obedience had transformed into a partnership built on mutual respect, understanding, and the quiet acknowledgement of power, shared in a way that neither dominance nor submission alone could explain. She reached out, placing a hand gently on his arm. "Human, Neil," she said once more, but this time her voice carried something new, an invitation rather than a command. He lowered himself, as he always had, but now there was a shared recognition between them, a silent agreement that their bond was more than authority or obedience. It was trust, choice, and an understanding that each had found something rare and profound in the other. The princess smiled, a genuine, unguarded expression, as she regarded the human before her. "You are exactly what I desired," she admitted softly, and for the first time, she realized that her empire's greatest lesson might not be one of power or conquest, but of the human.